AI investments. Obviously. No, it's like AI in gaming and how that changes.
Olga, ring the bell. Let them come here. Come on. No, the bell. Come on. They say, come on. They say very important subjects we don't talk about.
Yeah, we just thought. I think it's.
Do we need mics?
People in the last.
Before it was fine with your talk.
People in the last row. Can you hear?
Let's do without mics. If anyone can't hear, then just shout. We can.
May I introduce you?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay. So welcome to the panel from Funds to Future. I think it's at the big, continuous of the previous panel, investment of AI to the tomorrow's opportunity. We have Maximilian Sieberiband, who was talking in the previous panel, and Ulrich, right? And Martin McMillan. Welcome. So you can enjoy the panel. And at the end, if you have any question, you can ask. And I can help in asking questions. So please.
Cool. Thank you very much for the intro. Just do very quick intros between us. I'm Martin McMillan. I am wearing slightly different hats today. Normally my day job is with Bond VC, but I am representing a mobile finance collective here. So this is a community I founded about 6 months ago now for CFOs and finance leads in gaming. So the topic is the trying to talk about what's happening and stuff going forward in the future in terms of investment landscape. Spoiler alert, I'm going to be talking about AI like everyone else quite a lot, but from an investment standpoint rather than anything else. I'll let our panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll get into it.
Should I just start?
Yeah.
Thanks, Martin. My name is Max. I'm coming here from the AI.FUND. We are a relatively new kid to the block in terms of venture capital. We started out this year investing, as the name suggests, into venture capital, which again is a very broad field. So gaming infrastructure, gaming, as long as there is a relevance towards AI, is exactly what we're looking for. Seed, Series A rounds, tickets between 500 to 2.5 million dollars is roughly the sweet spot, broader sweet spot in that sense. Prior to AI, the AI.FUND, I was working in a very similar field like Martin with Policy. I was with One Up Capital, so more on the user acquisition, debt financing side rather than equity financing side, and been working in tech before that. Ulrich, do you want to start?
My name is Ulrich. I'm the co-founder of VitalPlay. Been in business 25 years. Built companies, scaled companies, published many games, and developed many games. And today also I'm wearing two hats. One of them is as a co-founder of my gaming studio, VitalPlay. We build therapeutic games. Our first game is Serenium. It's designed to regulate the functions of ADHD with kids. And the other hat is I consult many gaming studios on how to raise money, how to build and scale businesses.
Cool. Well, thanks guys for taking the time to be on the panel. So we may as well start from the AI angle. So again, let's try and think of it from an investment point of view. So I guess the audience is going to want to know about practical applications, how they can use that as part of investment thesis, trying to kind of raise money, save money, etc. So maybe we start in terms of how investors are thinking about gaming studios or gaming infrastructure companies, but specifically from what do they care about? So any investor looking at anyone looking for funding in the space now, what do they care about in terms of the AI strategy, whether it's a content company or an infrastructure company?
Yeah, I mean, if I can just start on this topic, I think there's two different dimensions we have to look at. I think there's what you said, like other content companies that don't per se have to be an AI company, if that makes sense. But what an investor would look at is how much of maybe AI are they using to make them as efficient as possible with what is available nowadays, right? So I think you would lose out on a lot of cost efficiency, time efficiency, and so on, and investor discussions, obviously, if you're not applying certain AI tools or artificial intelligence to your daily toolbox, a tool set, right? Doesn't matter if it's for the community application, for the actual game mechanics, or for level design and so on. So I think that when you look at a content-based gaming studio, you should definitely think about how can I apply applicable AI now to my daily usage to make me a bit more attractive, right? You don't have to become an AI company per se. Maybe you will after time because you're starting to build your own stuff around it. But in the first instance, I think the usage of tools is extremely important. It's like, back in the days when you didn't use the basic Word, PowerPoints, toolbox, or the internet, and you try to raise money without it, right? So it's part of your programming toolbox, in my opinion. It should be.
Yeah. What are the two important things for investor? Time and money, right? I mean, they want to get it done in a short period of time, and they want to save money. So it's those two things. And also, I want to talk about a little bit here AI and machine learning also. Before I jump into that, I want to say more. Is that AI has been always in games anyway, right? I mean, if you look at decision making, problem solving, pattern recognition, think about Assassin's Creed, right? If you wander around in that area, that your comfort area, they're going to patrol you more there. And also on the decision making, an NPC can kind of analyze your actions in the game, and they can come up with a faster, or they can come up with different strategies. And also on the problem solving, there is a chess game, right? It's been always there, but it's just taken to another level, I guess, right now. I believe that and also from my experience in my studio now, that we use AI extremely, right? And it saves tons of time and tons of money, and it's just making things so much better. I have seen my mediocre developers getting a better developer. And also we're using it game design, we're using on the narrative side, we're using on the development side, and we're using on the fundraising side. We use that also. Fundraising, you can build a pitch deck, you can strategize your financial plans, and also on the content creation and marketing side. And in all those areas, in all those kind of elements, it just saves you tons of time, and the time is you need time. And also, it's just that I think about the content is, content and infrastructure, they should go hand in hand. You wish that you need that infrastructure, because if you have a great content, then it's going to be a great hit, right? It's user engagement. And you need to have that infrastructure to back that content. So you wish that you have that, you have that infrastructure to back in that content. So just, they go both in hand. But AI, if you know how to use it, that's a great tool that saves time and tons of money.
What's been your most off-the-wall use case of using AI in the sort of the day job, if you like, in terms of the game designs or narrative? What have you got the most sort of unexpected positive results from?
The thing that the computing power is going exponentially, it's just surprising me every day. The response time and the responses and the logical responses are really surprising. Really, I use it on every day to save tons of time, but also I think and I cannot predict where it's going to go, like 1 year or 2 years. It's going to be totally something else. But I believe that we humans are very moody creatures, and sometimes you get up in the morning like, how am I going to solve this today? I'm going to be creative. And my team is using that more like think about the character, like on the narrative. You build a narrative first in the game, and then you start building your characters. And one day you wake up and hey, what am I going to do with this? It used to take a week for a sketch. Now it's just like 2 seconds, 10 seconds, you have all of them. And you started building more characters, and it takes you to the places that you never imagined before. So it's a different role.
Yeah, to add on to your question, where we've seen tremendous changes that it delivered was to give another example, it's the whole space, and I mentioned earlier of QA testing, right? This is something that developers don't necessarily love to do, and when you think of a simple AI bot going through your game, doing all the testing for you, how much time that saves, and especially cost, right? Because QA testing, you at some point source out. I think Scopely pays 2-point-something million per year on QA testing itself.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. So saving on that front, right, on something that is very scalable and that is time consuming, I think is a fantastic game changer. And that's just one out of many examples.
I tell you something else. Now we started social media, and it's been going on 2 months, and I saved like $10,000 because I was going to work with these guys. And they said, okay, $5,000 per month. Now we are using different tools of AI. One of them is content creation. The other one is, programming it and on different dates. And the other one's come up with all these because we are in a health tech and gaming, and it's ADHD. So it's like there's science in it, there's gaming in there. There's all these tools that we have like 50 data points from our game we collect. So it's AI is all collecting those, and machine learning is making something, meaningful. And the results that we are even surprising now. Our tests are going on like since 2 or 3 months now. So all these data we're collecting from the kids, and we're putting it out there, and machine learning is making something very meaningful out of that. And from out of that, hopefully we're going to adjust the game so that it regulates better on the ADHD symptoms. So those things would take probably a lot more without the AI.
Can I also ask something too?
It just brings a lot of things.
It does, and I always like to think also about community management and community in that sense.
Exactly,
now, especially with you having a more medical application in a sense where questions might become also trickier to answer than just I don't know, back then when you started playing Zelda, the first Nintendos, you had a number you can call to ask them how do I find the treasure box, and there was literally someone at Nintendo picking up and telling you where to go to find the treasure box. But nowadays, obviously, there is so much more players and so much more dynamic and so much more complexity. Are you using AI already to help your audience with specific medical questions, or is that a field where you would say, this is not a treasure box that someone is looking for, this is a child's mental well-being, I won't do this with AI? Do you have those kind of fields where you say, no, I'm not touching this right now, in the medical sense? We're
using it in a couple of fronts. Number one is that the content marketing is always based on information. You have to be very careful, it's a very delicate area. You have to give proper information because we used to give information without thinking it. Now I have to say, it's this is not investor advice. I say this is not a medical advice because I'm not a doctor, right? I cannot say that. So we kind of fine tune it with that. And we always use, the doctors or the experts to give us their insights about that. But all these questions, this is more on this is where humans come in. This is a very important subject, and they don't want to see a kind of AI answering that. So we always have that kind of face-to-face, real-time, kind of video calls, or if possible, it's offline. So these are the things that I don't think it's going to lose that human attachment, never, right? And also about the content, I don't know if anyone plays Baldur's Gate here. That's an amazing game, right? It took 7 years, $70 million. So now probably it will take $5 million with 10 guys. We can do it.
The cost saving thing is huge, and it's almost it's the whole argument you can do a lot more with less. So with the MFC community, we were approached by Google recently with a question of how does your community of CFOs think about the financial impact of AI? And I said, I don't know, why don't you come and ask them? So Tam is going to run a panel, I think on the 11th of November, where we've got different CFOs talking about their, how they think about this stuff. Now, there's a couple of different ways to look at it. Are you going to have people talking about where typical kind of CFO, here's a business case, so I was doing it like this, I was spending $20,000 a month on artists in Belize or whatever, and now I'm spending $5,000 because I have these different tools doing asset generation, therefore my business case is this. Or are you going to have a totally separate viewpoint, which is basically, if I don't do it, I'm going to get eaten, and therefore it's just like an industrial revolution type thing. Unless I do it, this is just the new normal. So forget trying to business case and scope it, you just have to do it. And I think an interesting one is, it's not just about here a financial impact, it's about the overall kind of time to market, and it's this sort of fluid chain between, you know, finance and development and QA and retention strategies and marketing, like all these different things. Everything's like totally fluid between all these parts of a gaming studio, and the benefit may not be, hey, I save 40% of my art costs. It may be like, hey, I ship product to market quicker, which has it's a lot harder to measure that return than just like a pure business case. So I don't want to prejudge the outcome of that. It's going to be very interesting. I'm going to sit back and just listen. But the way that different people are looking at that opportunity and thinking about that opportunity is going to be very interesting. But the one thing you can't get away from is this idea of you can do more with less, right? So it'd be interesting to kind of understand from a, like if you were looking at kind of making an investment in a studio, what would you want to understand? What would be the sort of the key yeses or nos if someone is in terms of asking about? I mean, because everyone's going to ask about that. I mean, you particularly.
Are you using it?
Yeah. Are you, and how, and to what effect? So maybe there's sort of, again, from investors, think about this, like you're going to get questions from investors about like these leading questions, and I think a lot of it is going to be in the detail in terms of how you answer.
Yeah, I think you have to differentiate here a little bit between like just using a GPT like every other person in an office does every day nowadays, or actually taking the technology in order to build a different framework for your everyday working, right? And then I think this is where it differentiates a little bit. And I always like to say, it's like, you don't invest into an e-commerce company that is now an AI company because they're using an AI chatbot. It's still not an AI company, right? Mm-hmm. It's still an e-commerce company that has a feature that they're using. And so of course you can just like start subscribing to 3 AI-based SaaS tools that will help you. But at the end of the day, I think what Martin is saying is quite important. How do all of those different elements that you can use nowadays are interacting with each other to make something really actually efficient and cost saving, which time will also show. So let's say, for example, you have game A that you produced 2 years ago without AI, and then you do a second game with AI. You show a potential investor, look, this is like the cost savings, the efficiency, the time to delivery that I was able to improve. This is what we're doing. Again, it won't make you necessarily an AI company, but it doesn't have to if you're a content company. We can also talk about the other side of the table when you are if you're an infrastructure company that wants to be a pure player in AI. That is a bit of a different story in how you're getting there. And you have to go a level deeper. You don't have to create your own LLM, but you obviously have to know how to use the existing LLMs out there to build something on top of that is a functioning platform with its own USP. Because that's what most people forget. Using an AI won't give you an USP, right? The way you use it might do that ultimately. That's the difference.
I mean, probably the gold standard of outside of gaming is someone like Klarna. So if you look at the results, Klarna has developed all of their customer service tools, built it internally, and have published some savings, how they wildly change their financials because of that. So I think there's a difference between an AI first company and a company that happens to use some AI tools. I don't. Everyone is going to do that.
Absolutely.
So it's also a case. I mean, you read. With anything new, there's always these hype cycles. So everything is hyped up massively, but it feels to me like with Web3. I mean, we can talk about that later, but it's sort of. The promise was there, it never really kind of delivered. Now maybe there's a second coming, I know you've got some views on this we're going to talk about, but for me, I personally never got into it, I didn't really get my head around it. That's maybe just what I want. But for AI, it's like starting to kind of impact my daily life in ways that I didn't. So sure, there's hype cycles, people will be massively overinvested, will be inevitably, but it feels like something that's here to stay as a technology. So that, I mean, people talk about AI first and all the rest of it. It feels like the important thing is like to what extent you're using it and deriving real value from it early, and how much. I think any investor is going to see through the kind of BS or something. Oh yeah, we're AI enabled or something like that. If you just happen to use a few tools in there. But maybe controversial. Do you have to be like an AI first company? Do you have to sort of jump on the bandwagon, or are there perfectly good companies out there that just make great games in the traditional way without sort of flying the AI flag?
That's a good question. I think it depends a little bit on who you're talking to at the end of the day. I mean, use it to your advantage if you're talking to someone like me who is an AI first investor, right? Like, then position yourself in that direction. If that is going to be successful, I will not promise you, but obviously to open up a door, it might, be a bit more promising. I mean, and to the other point that you mentioned, Martin, like AI has been around since the 70s, especially machine learning. What you said earlier about machine learning in gaming and decision making and decision trees, it's always been there, in every form of life at the end of the day. But AI has been starting to come to development, I think it was in the 70s slowly. And so, yeah, it is here to stay. And we don't want to make too much comparison to Web3 now, because I don't think that's fair and it's not really comparable, but it's such a household item now, right? I mean, if you speak to Alexa on Amazon, or if my kids are interacting with something digital, there is so much of AI already in that, in your own household. It doesn't have to be super technical. There's applied AI now, and that has changed. Yeah? Nowadays we have applied AI, and that's been the game changer in my opinion. Sorry.
Look, it's been 5 months now. We delivered the MVP, and the investors are like, "Oh, how'd you do it?" And during that time, you can deliver more with less time, not losing the quality, not losing anyone on your team, and that's what we did. What we did was, AI does all the repetitive work. The human brain is more active when you're doing creative work, not repetitive work. That's why we have seen many unhappy people around the world just going blind and then coming back, and they do repetitive time and time again. So this is like really creating a lot of unhappiness. What we did was, we put all these repetitive works, we put a bunch of good information that they can use, and it helps us in many ways, to creating that narrative, to creating that Q&A, to creating that social media, that strategy, that creating that like input and output, information in, information out, and machine learning. And it's just that now on the infrastructure side, by the way, I think what I realized, I have a saying that if there is pain, you should create a product, So the product should be that we're using a bunch of AI tools. Now you should make this one AI tool, you put all the information there, and it just can create all the strategies for you. There's some AI tools, but they're not there yet. I think this could be a great idea now, that this AI-focused, making use of AI easier on different verticals, because there are different strategies for different verticals, right? I think that could be
an AI for an AI.
AI for an AI. AI optimizing company, SaaS business for AI.
All right.
It's always like that. With the new technology, it's a mess. There's a lot of companies around, that you don't know what to do, you don't know which one to use, and then someone comes up and puts them all together, and that's a winner. So, and could be a nice idea, guys, huh?
Creativity. Kill it or enhance it, and again, investor point.
Asking first.
It's a very good point. We talked about this to some of you earlier. In my opinion, AI, and this is what you said, Ulrich, will make repetitive grunt work redundant. That's what it's supposed to do. It won't replace creativity. It will write excellent code. It already writes excellent code, but it will not replace
good code.
Yeah, and emotional intelligence,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So this is the important point.
Yeah.
Because emotional intelligence is something that can't be created by, hopefully never, otherwise we're in the Terminator scenario at some point. But that's what I think the core of a good developer makes, creating atmospheric games or atmosphere in a game. If it's something very simple and it just should be an ultra hyper casual game in that sense that should not have any atmospheric levels and so on, maybe an AI can create that nowadays, right? So that's because the game dynamics and the mechanics are always the same, but I don't think it will replace the creative mind of developers in that sense, who will enhance it, as you suggested?
It's a news, really, digital news. It's right there, and people sometimes need that kind of, that feeling, that that time that someone just, because a good developer can feel, not feeling very well sometimes, and it's just that news can pump them. That's the same for a creator too. So it doesn't really kills it. At the opposite, I think it's just enhances it. My wife doesn't really, believe in that.
But I believe in him, not you.
But I don't know if I would agree with the muse part, because I think AI is more like, let's say at your own home you hire a cleaner, and then that cleaner is not your muse, obviously, in your everyday life, but it will help you to enhance, to open up time for other things, right?
Yeah.
So it will enable you with time, right? And that time you can like invest into different things.
That's on the technical,
Yeah.
But
I'm
what
not
I'm
sure if it's
feeling
gonna
is
like
that
work as a
sometimes
muse.
you get stuck, like, writer's block or creative, and then you can tell, like, what do you think about this? And then it just makes an image that can kind of, boost your creativity all of a sudden. So you start with a new path. So this is like unbelievable. It really saves a lot of time in your creativity. It doesn't really kill it. It boosts it at the times that, because as I said, humans are moody creatures, we don't feel it, we're on block, what am I going to do with this character? And all of a sudden you talk to the AI and say about it, and then it just boosts your creativity, and that is, because I've seen this. Most of my developers and my creative guys, they come up and say, this solution, I found it, this is how about that, oh yeah, this is great, so it's just, and then let's keep on going.
We all know it's easier to kind of look at something and be like, oh no, that's not right.
Yeah.
And here's what's wrong with it and tweak it, as opposed to like staring at a blank stage and flashing cursor.
So
like,
both on that technical level, as you said, and both on this level, so it's just like that double-sided level.
But will it make developers creatively lazier? Because they have to start because when you say this is working as a muse, like give me 5 suggestions, rather than me coming up with 5 suggestions that I will discuss with my team. Because
It depends on the developer's authentic self. If there's an illusion inside of it, even the cleaner of the house can make you, mix. But if you are just your roots are deep down, then the AI will be muse for you.
We'll have Q&As later on. The developers are really, I think they want to do it on their way. Let's say we have this pet finding problem the other day, and then it shows us some ways to solve it, and that they solve it in their way. Developers are always like, it has to be on their way. They're very conservative in that one. So I don't think, but again, the losing jobs is a big question always I get. And we got this one, the cars came out and the computers came out now, but they created many, many verticals. So for the developer part, no, I don't think so. But if you're in a comfort zone, man, if you don't love your job, and of course, information in, information out businesses, most of them. And if you're not good at what you do in your comfort zone, if you're not really kind of improving yourself, you're going to lose it without the AI or with the AI. It doesn't matter really.
Let's talk a bit about, in terms of where the investment dollars are flowing, right? In terms of, so there's always been this big thing in gaming versus gaming content versus game infrastructure. So obviously the infrastructure is the pots and pans that enable people to build games quicker, faster, better, whatever. And then content is like, I'm going to invest X money in building a new match 3 or a new genre of game or whatever it is. Now, for a long time, and I actually wrote a blog post, I put it out 2 days ago on exactly this, which is about, for a long time, VCs were like towing the line of games as a hits business, we don't invest in games. So, and that was, I think there was LVP and there was initial capital in the early days from like 2014, whatever, said, no, we invest in games, and they've had some phenomenal success. But the typical line that was towed is like, we don't invest in individual gaming projects. And then in about end of 2018, 2019, the floodgates opened, everyone wanted to get into gaming, a lot of games got funded, and then of course the floodgates have all shut again, and the pendulum has swung back the other way in terms of, we don't invest in gaming projects, we prefer them. And there are VCs like Convo and some of this that we don't invest in gaming content, we do infrastructure. So people set out a different standard. So my thesis was that there are a lot of what I called, not meaning to be disrespectful, like zombie games. So people who have spent $10 million building games, the game is doing okay, but it's never going to break out. Maybe it's doing 50K, maybe it's doing 100K a month. The whole team's in there, everyone feels trapped. They're never going to sell the company, whatever. So the thesis was, and I've seen a lot of kind of private equity interest and so on in acquiring these sort of what I call zombie games. They're not going to break out. So in a sense, if you could sell the game for a year's revenue or 2 years revenue, whatever the number is, does it give you enough money then to say, right, I'm going to take that money and I'm going to go and build another game, but I'm going to do it for half the cost and half the time because of AI, and then the acquirer effectively builds up this long term. Now you have to have the ability to service the games or but to me it gives, it's an interesting investment opportunity acquiring these games. B, it gives the founders a way out of feeling trapped. Like, I feel like totally indentured to the VCs. This was my dream in business, and we're just about break even, but we've had to cut the team to 6 people, and they're trapped. It's zombie, and for the VC, it's like, shit, we invested in this game. It's not gone anywhere. We can't do it. Like, where do we go? So if you're actually able to take some money off the table, roll it into building a new game, it's better for the VC. They don't take any dilution. It's effectively like raising a mini round again, albeit probably smaller, but maybe you can do as much with less money. So this whole thing about the content versus infrastructure in terms of, like, if you're looking, I mean, maybe just a quick mini poll, like, who is trying to raise money for a particular game concept or whatever, whether that's a publisher or it's okay, so that's more sort of single game, like, I have a brilliant idea for a game and here's why it's going to succeed sort of thing. Okay.
And with some KPIs for this.
Right, yeah. So it's, and that bar is ever higher of KPIs, not concept, and that's just what happens in this sort of cycle. And who's looking at raising money for like an infrastructure play? So you've got something that makes quick, right, so bigger, better, faster, cheaper.
There are 2 examples.
Yeah. So this is the thing. So in terms of, and there's not a right or wrong answer here, but it's like, so from a content play, well, let's take both. So investing in content now versus investing in content in 2019, 2020. So what are the key, and again, trying to just divide sort of like the investor viewpoint in there, what was then and what is now. I would appreciate your focus on AI stuff, right? We're trying to,
Yeah, but we still like, all the, we still looked at both, and also with One-Up Capital, we did a lot of smaller tickets for content back in those days, especially during like the COVID times, right? Like, I mean, when you put it into specific events that we experienced, then the whole COVID period was where content absolutely was on the rise, where everyone was like throwing money into it, figuratively speaking. Now, like there was like a lot of the valuations were extremely high and so on. That has changed, yes. The volume in that space has decreased, yeah. But I think you have to just simply look at it from a different perspective now. So there are still investments into companies that produce content, but it's not just about that content anymore. It's about the infrastructure framework that the company itself builds to produce future content, right? So it's not just, I'm investing into a title, I'm investing into a company that produces titles, right? Before that you thought title. Today you think company with titles, right? So that has changed in my opinion.
Healthier that way, no?
Pardon?
Healthier.
Much healthier, because it's, I mean, the thing is, Martin mentioned that there are VCs that are completely content focused, right? Like Laton is running around here. They are very content focused VC from Istanbul. Convoy, complete opposite, infrastructure play. I think you mentioned LVP, they did both. They did Unity, was one of their biggest cases, but they also did some content things. So I think there's a healthy mix of, like, I'll take Bitkraft for example. Lots of AI and infrastructure topics, but also content topics, also Web3 and so on. But I think you have both, but in general, and I don't have the stats to back it up right now, it has changed from being, hey, I have a game and I'm investing into a game versus, or sorry, a title, versus I'm a company and I build a structure, not just like a title that I'm looking to raise into right now. So that has changed, that mindset in my opinion. And that's healthier, as you said.
Yeah, it's more like hype or sustainability, right? Is it a hype or, because at the hype time, when the music is on, man, those valuations just go out of the roof, right? When the music is on the investor side, they're like drill surgeons, right? They're like, oh, okay, let's jump on board. We don't want to miss that, and that creates this really ridiculous valuations. And then when the music is off, those entrepreneurs, they suffer because investors, they're like, now they're like, we're looking for something extraordinary because they got beaten, they got burned, right? So good investment strategy should be on the bear market or a bull market should be the same. That's my opinion. The second thing is, in Turkey, everything changed, like the point of view, after Zynga acquired Peak. You know what we've seen? We've seen those gaming-specific VCs, they emerge. Before there were like VCs, they didn't understand the language of the gamers and everything. They're like, okay, what is this? Okay, I put money and then return on investment 2 years, where's my revenue? And that killed the game. That kills the game. And usually that's where we come in most of the time. And still there's some, like kind of mismanagement, miscommunication. Because developers they have their own world. They don't live here, right? You have to speak there. And most of the game and like the game owners, the studio owners, they're developers somehow.
Yeah.
And it is like they need to speak the same language. I think if you go with the hype, the content, the hype, we have seen many great VCs. They invest millions and millions of dollars without any good due diligence because they want to jump on.
Well, I mean, just to add on to this, and this is not probably a popular opinion amongst developers, when I say this now, is gaming itself, the game itself is not a typical, it's not a VC case. Like, I mean, sorry, you just have to face the fact, right? From the way it is built and set up, the game itself is not the typical VC case. If you compare to all the other VC cases out there, right? So that we went into a hit-driven business as VCs, especially in 2019 and so on, that was like a small miracle by itself, right? That a gaming-focused venture capital fund does a bit of both, I completely understand. You can hash your portfolio a little bit, with a healthy mix maybe. But from the core essentials, a game is not like a VC case theoretically. That's like to make just a hard fact statement, in my opinion, right? But then again, if you build a company that has built an infrastructure or a solution around it, then it's a completely different story.
And also demographics, like those kids are very young, and they see $500,000, they're ready to give 60% of the company.
I hope someone disagrees now really heavily with me here.
I wrote a post a couple of years ago, which I got a lot of flack for, which is why gaming companies shouldn't raise money after Series A. So it does, of course, it costs money to build games, right? So whether you bootstrap, whatever, that's a completely different subject. So it costs money to build games, but once you've got a game and it's out there and you have enough content to see if people like it and all the rest of it, then it just boggles my mind when people would go and raise, I'm raising a 20 or 30 or $40 million Series B or Series C, which is basically going to go into user acquisition. Really simple thing. If
when they should go to Poland.
Or like if the game can't fund its own UA, then and these games that will go so cash negative because you only break even in a year or 18 months, whatever. You've got to look at it on a financial return point of view. What's the best way to fund it?
Also, as a founder, like diluting because of marketing spend. I mean, that never got into my head. But maybe we're biased here, Martin, slightly.
Not gonna lie, but yeah, I mean, that's a whole separate topic. But it's like, there's for that gaming content, a good game is always a good game. We see stuff like the whole time, some of it is still equity funded, largely VCs have pulled away from that. But then, also I think what happened was there are people who really understand games, investors who really understand games, and my number one piece of advice to anyone looking to raise money for a game or a content or whatever is go to people that understand it. There were lots of people that said, gaming's pretty cool, let's get into that. And would deploy capital, and that largely often went wrong because they don't have that really deep-seated understanding of the industry. So if you can avoid it, try and stay away from those guys. I mean, everyone's money is as green as the next person, right? That's for sure. But when the shit hits the fan, you want someone who actually understands and talks the same language, because it's such a specialist type of knowledge that you don't acquire overnight.
No, I agree. I mean, you can have those people in your cap table, but they should maybe lead it. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you get a good lead and other people kind of fill it out,
then it's fine.
That's okay. But yeah, I mean, having a good lead who really understands, who can
crucial.
Talk.
And also, it's the expectation management. You don't hyperbole things. It's you expect your expectation management both on the community and investor side. All right. Although now AI is like, okay, they're going to say, well, this is not going to take time. But if you're putting a AAA game, it's going to take some time. The runway is longer. So they should meet on the same page. Like, look, we're building something incredible here. This is going to take a long time and money. And this is how it's going to. You cannot also go to an investor because they're going to love it. Say that, look, this is my marketing budget, and I'm going to conquer the world. No way, You cannot pay people. So there's a couple of important things that I want to say first. Look, number one is that, and the number one is the people, the team. $10 people, $10 person is going to think $10. You don't underpay your team. You pay it because he's going to save you millions of dollars later on that user acquisition, the good user UA guy, right? And then this marketing budget. If you believe in your UA guy, that marketing budget should really reflect the real world kind of numbers, the user acquisition cost of them. Otherwise, you're gonna run out while hyperboling it. The cash flow, the cash flow is the king. There's no cash, there's nothing. So you have to arrange everything. All expectations should be managed accordingly to the community, to the investor. And on the investor side, you're so right. I mean, and also you need to work with some people that they understand gaming. Otherwise, that relationship, because you're going to become family, you're going to be in this business for many years, it's not going to work.
And do not start a pitch deck with the total addressable market of mobile games and how it's predicted to do this.
No.
Just do yourself a favour. It's like, would you see, like, if I was a promising indie artist, would I talk about the total size of the music business and how I'm going to, just no, so just don't do it. Like, everyone, people still do that, still see that all the time. Just focus on the game, the metric, and anyone's going to see through that. Everyone knows big market.
2 billion games out there, I'm going to get 10%.
Even the 1%,
But I think, just to build on this, I think a good piece of advice is to do really, there's maybe 20 or so, recognizable VC funds in the world that focus on gaming, maximum in total. So it's a very observable universe, but still amongst them, do your research of who is actually the player you should be with. There's, for example, take the games fund. They do invest into AA, AAA title kind of things. Something that most of the other funds would never touch, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, there's Convoy that does the infrastructure play and so on. So I think there is something out there for everyone, but you should do your research in order to find out what does the portfolio look like, what do they invest into in the past, is this something I could fit in? Because that will help you to speak to them. And then just don't cold email them, find the right people to connect with them. Because that's going to be your lucky shot maybe, because there's not that many out there. And I don't say don't do VC funding for your hit-driven game. I'm just saying try to find the right investor for it, because most of it will be a waste of time, but there are some out there. It doesn't matter if it's PC, mobile, or console.
But I think particularly for mobile now, as it all kind of always was, but now particularly metrics are going to be just even more important. So unless you've got this whole idea is not going to get funded. You're going to have something that's demonstrable. How will you fund it to get to that point? And then I think the ones where you still see stuff getting funded all the time, particularly the sort of short term. Because let's face it, the VC funds have raised an enormous amount of capital and they're still sitting on a ton of dry powder, so they have to deploy in something. Yeah. But I kind of the funds that raise hundreds and hundreds of millions, whatever. You can't. Well, I don't think you can deploy 20 million here, 50 million there, whatever, and then make the sorts of returns and IRRs that you need to if that money's just going to user acquisition. But the short end, the smaller end of the kind of seed, the small Series A, whatever, if you have the metrics to support it, essentially the way they are, to my mind, starting to look at it more is just on a financial return basis. If you think that a VC fund is trying to return, let's say a target IRR of 40%, look at what the IRR of your own, like ROAS, whatever, but look at the financial returns of your UA spend, because essentially all someone, you strip out all the, creativity and the rest of it, it's basically just, you're a portfolio manager who's managing portfolios of cohorts. That's all it is. And you look at the financial return, what it costs to fund, money in, money out, but look at it not like hey, when do I break even my ad spend? Is it day 7 or day 700? Look at it on, if I invest $1, what does that look like, and measure the internal rate of return, because you bet that's how the VCs are looking at it. Not some super fluffy marketing, oh great, guess what, I'm ROAS positive. I never understood that. Being ROAS positive is like, guess what, well done, you just made enough money to pay for the ad for someone to buy a user, right? So Google or TikTok, whoever, they're all good, they're fat and happy. You have yet to make a cent of which you're going to
pay for your costs.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I think, what nowadays it's obviously been difficult times and so on, but like you have to give something to get something, and either it is good metrics, as you say, or if you don't have them, it's what we see track record, right? Like there's a lot of people that just have done very successful things in the past, and they have those abilities to come there and say, hey, I have a good idea, please give me money, because they have track record, right? So either it's track record or it's the track record of your numbers that you need to deliver in order to get fundraising, in my opinion. Just a beautiful idea on a piece of paper is most cases not enough. But that's not just gaming, this is everywhere. Yeah. Most VCs, it starts like, MVP was something starting at a Series A at some point for some funds. Now it's like MVP at seed stage, maybe even at pre-seed stage, otherwise you're not getting funding. So it's a bit, like it has, that pendulum has swung not just like within gaming, fintech and so on, it's not different in my opinion.
I think it's traction, right? I mean, what I advise is that you gotta build something first, right? Because as you said, it's not gonna fly, they want to see something. It's a good idea, flashy, pitch deck and everything. Hey, where is it? So, just go and find it, like friends and family, and an angel investor. Before going to the VC, say, hey, you know what? I have something MVP-ish. At least, I built this, and then start from there. Because the idea now, it's going to be very expensive if they invest really.
AI can help you build it faster and cheaper, right? So, guys, we've got 8 minutes left, so wanted to maybe see if there's any questions you guys want to ask or throw out there whilst we let these guys hear it.
Yeah, there you go.
So on your point that VCs are not for gaming, right? So I think that the most traditional form of funding for a studio is publishing, right? So what would be like your suggestions, and why would then a gaming studio should go for investor rather than a publisher? Because,
I can answer that one really, really passionately.
Okay, I'm very interested.
We ran some research about, let's start. What's the ambition? Is the ambition to grow a business that can ultimately be sold, or is it as a passion project?
So, as you were saying earlier, right, that usually the CEOs or the founders of the studios are, artists or people are developers, are people who they don't usually have this strong business mindset, and they don't really build a company to sell the company. Right? They do this because they want to create great experience, great product, something that leaves a mark, their imagination. So I believe that the answer for most developers would be that you just want to have this project to be successful, but you don't really think about selling other shares.
Okay, so wind back a second. If you're going to try and raise VC money for your game, the VC is only interested if they think you're ambitious and you're going to get a financial return, they're going to get an exit. That's what VC is, right? So we ran some research, we used InvestGame, publicly available data, we did it in, I think, 2021 and 2022. Asked a simple question: what was the primary business model of the studio that got sold, right? And all the M&A deals in 21 and 22. In 21, it was 83% was self-published, 15% were studios, and the remainder were people who used a third-party publisher, 2% whatever, was third-party publishers to get their game, right? Essentially, like you have to self-publish if you ever want to sell. By the way, the next year was 85-15. 85 self-published, 15 were themselves publishers, 0 raised, 0 M&A from people who relied on third-party publishers to get into the market. Now,
That's very interesting, actually.
so wind the clock back a little, or wind back a little bit from that. If you're trying to raise money for a game and you don't intend to self-publish, now there might be like a user publisher for the first one, whatever, okay. But if you were trying to raise money for a game and you can't show the VC they're ever going to get an exit, you ain't going to raise any money. So there are plenty of publishers out there who just prey, to my mind, sorry, but on creative developers who are prepared to put their heart and soul into doing something, won't pay them any money up front, will take 50, 60, 70% of the revenue, and then will drop them like a stone unless it's like a... So I, personally, I just wouldn't touch them at all. Or,
I'm 100% there with Martin, and I mean, it breaks down to something that you actually just said, and you answered your own question, I think, which is, you know, the mindset, right? Like, I mean, if you do have a mindset that wants to build a game and self-publish that, then you have to become an entrepreneur. And this is maybe going out of a comfort zone of what you've been before. You've been a developer, not a business student that wants to, like, you know, build a business. You've been a developer. If you want to stay in that zone of building games, and then maybe a publisher route is the right route for you, there's nothing bad about that. But I think it's an absolute mindset question. And when you go out of that comfort zone into that direction of self-publishing, then you have that excellent potential, and then investors want to speak to you.
And this takes us back to that question, why we should work with people that are putting as a publisher or as a investor that understands the product. There are some VCs out there that are also publishers, and those guys, they publish your game, and then they come up with a different investment strategies. They say, okay, after 2 years, when you reach a certain revenue, we'll buy 50% of your company. But they do some fair, evaluations there too. So it's all about your strategy too. It's if the other side understands your product, the other side understands that you got that, kind of flame in you as a product, as a CEO, as a, as an entrepreneur, then it's a different type of negotiation.
Yeah, you get the funding for your company, not your title.
Yeah.
my view again, and you can tell I've got reasonable strength of feeling on the subject, is that the publisher is, and you're starting to see this a little bit, is actually looking to acquire the games that they publish. Because if you're a publisher, let's say you were publicly listed, you publish something but you don't own the underlying IP, pretty shit business, the market doesn't value you that highly. So if you actually look to say, hey guys, we're going to acquire the game, you're going to get some cash out of it, which can be a good deal, that's better, and it's also better for the publisher because they're actually building a portfolio of intellectual property as opposed to just this business model that was transplanted from book publishing or music publishing or rest of it to games, which to my mind didn't really fit. But it comes down to what what do you want to do, what sort of company you want to build, what's the end game, and if you can think through that, then you can figure out the steps to get there.
What I propose is, I understand, you need an attitude, you have to change yourself, but when you're self-publishing, you also need tremendous amount of money, according to what I hear from this, all these conferences. You need to put hundreds of thousands of dollars to advertising. So, how do you survive this environment? Plus, when is the right time to go to the VC then?
So put yourself in the VC's thing. What kind of games are you building? Let's say, so if I build a game and it's got a 3-month break-even period versus a 12-month break-even period, right? The 3-month break-even period is infinitely cheaper to scale, right? If you think about it, so I liken it to being a farmer, right? So take extreme examples. You're a hyper-casual, hyper-casual, dead, whatever, but hyper-casual developer. You are, the type of farmer you are is like a salad green farmer, right? You're a cress farmer because you plant your crop, you put the hydroponics on, a bit of water, it's at market, you take your crop to market in 7 days, right? What can go wrong? Electricity failed, whatever. If you're like a puzzle game developer who's got like a like an 18-month break-even period, right? You might projected like 7-year, you know, all the rest of it. That's okay, but you were like a sugarcane farmer, right? You plant your seed, you have to pour a lot of water on it, and then in 12 months' time, you get the first little green shoot, and then in 24 months' time, your crop is ready to harvest. That takes a shitload of money and water, whatever. And what could go wrong? You could have drought, you could have, you know, flooding. All these things could go wrong on that journey. So, you know, and again, no VC is interested. So just do the math on it. You spend $1, you make your $1 back after a year, and you make 20% return at the end of year 2. That's a 10% per annum yield. I could put 10% into corporate real estate or corporate BBB bonds and make 10%. So why am I going to put into that? Because a lot that's risk. Whereas if I can make 10% in 3 months, that's without compounding, it's a 40% annualized return on capital. You know, that's better than any VC fund or hedge fund pretty much out there. I'm all in on that. So if you can build games that don't require this like massive long leap of faith period until it's like, is it going to work? It's going to work.
It takes a very different type of investor to do AAA and those kind of games in general, right? But as I said earlier, and to answer your question maybe also a little bit, there are investors for those kind of cases out there. You just have to do your research, because a lot of them are, as Martin says, more like on that side of the return yield basically that they want, rather than having such a long waiting period. But both is out there. So.
And just if the VC is going to target a 40% return, they're not going to want to take that money, invest into an asset that's got a 10% return, right? It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, in 2021, maybe, because different rules apply, but in any sort of normal sense, just really, really focus on the financial returns of UA, what it costs you to fund, what the return is, and then the
And
the
don't
shape
go
of the
with
curve.
all the predictions. Just do small group, spend some money, go with them with a given of this is my user acquisition cost, this is my paying user cost, and I can do better. But don't go on and like, hey, this is what's going to happen, and we're going to make tons of money. That doesn't work.
We're exactly on time now.
It's
So
been 1 hour?
that's been 1 hour.
Wow.
Always goes fast when you talk, right?
Yeah.
Guys, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
Quick round. Hopefully some insights there. And I know you've got to drive back shortly, but I'll be around for a couple of hours. I've just got noticed my flight is delayed, so I might be around all
So
afternoon.
you're here, okay?
Yeah. But guys, if there's any other follow-up questions, just add me on LinkedIn, drop me a message. I'll respond next week, and make sure we can continue any conversations that result from this. Yeah, we have to. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Enjoy Berlin. Getting back.